So I won't hesitate no more, it cannot wait, I'm yours. Hey everyone, welcome back to the 20-Hour Ukulele Challenge, and today we're going to do I'm Yours by Jason Mraz. This is one of the song I'm using as a bridge in a lot of ways, between the sort of Hawaiian style of playing and a couple of groovy tricks that we do in some of the other songs. So I'm going to start with a really easy version that anyone can play, and later in the video I'm going to teach you some snazzy tricks with the strumming. So hope you have fun with it, and here we go. Let's start with the chords. So for most of the song, there's a loop going on. And the loop goes like this. You start with a C chord. We're going to use the ring finger on the 3rd fret of the 1st string. Next, we're going to go to G. I sort of like to use the James Taylor fingering because it gets around in the key of C really easily. So what I do is I use the index on the 2nd fret of the 1st string, the ring on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string, and the middle on the 2nd fret of the 3rd string. It kind of looks like that. Just take a second, play with that until you feel like you got it. Or use another fingering if you prefer. Then we're going to go A minor. Use the middle finger on the 2nd fret of the 4th string, and then the index on the 1st fret of the 3rd string. You add that to get your F chord. You go from A minor to F. And then we go back to C, and we just go through those 4 chords again and again. So one more time, it's going to be C, G, A minor, F. And for most of the song, we're basically going to do sort of 2 cycles of a strumming pattern on each chord. So if we do kind of like the life-saving pattern, as we call it, where we just go down, down, up, down, up. I've got a video on how to do that if you need to in this series, but let's just assume you can take any strumming pattern you want. You basically will do 2 patterns on each chord. So it'll be kind of like this. You'd go like down, and then do a pattern again to G. Down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up. 1 pattern. 2 patterns. 3, and then F, and back to C. So I hope you can see, if the pattern is down, down, up, down, up, you basically just do that twice on each chord. You go down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, switch. So the key really here is like deciding what pattern you want to use. And I think the easiest one you can use is what I call the Hawaiian pattern, which is the same one we use in Over the Rainbow and Someone to Lava. And the way we do that pattern is, I'm actually going to take a second and just put my pick down. You can do it with a pick. I like to do it with sort of the pad of my finger here because it makes a softer sound, but it's totally up to you. So what we do is we go down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. If you want to make it real simple, you literally just go down and up, and you basically you can do this whole pattern counting to 8 for each chord. You could go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and that would be the whole chord. I guess you'd be, instead of counting to 4, you count to 8. And then that would get you through the whole chord. What I really like to do is accent the even numbers, because it makes it a little more groovy. If you listen to just down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, it sounds okay, but it sounds kind of flat, whereas if you go, makes you want to sway a little bit more. So, and what you do to get that is you go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and what you'll do is you'll get downstrokes on your numbers, and every time there's an even number, you just kind of hit it a little bit harder. And actually the key to this is not so much hitting the even numbers harder, but hitting everything else really softly. You'll notice what I do is I kind of move just like maybe like a millimeter away, so that when I go past the strings, I sort of just like lightly touch them. Or if you do it with a pick, what you can do is you can kind of turn your pick away from the strings. You'll notice that, see, if the pick goes straight in, it really digs in. If it's turned away, it doesn't dig in as much, so it's softer. I'm also using a very soft pick, you'll see. It's very stretchy, and using a soft pick with soft strings like nylon, it tends to work a little better, especially with these dynamics, because they don't push each other as much. So to get it softer, you can kind of turn away, so you can be like one, and then you sort of radially turn your elbow with the pick when you want it to be louder. It's like sort of like that. So that's a way you can get the dynamics with the pick, or you can just kind of dig into the strings a little bit more. So take a little bit of time right now. I'm going to just kind of pause. I'm going to put my ukulele down. I want you to see if you can get this down, up, down, up, down, up. See if you can get your accents on 2 and 4. You're going to say 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and see if you can get your accents on your even numbers, and then restart the video when you think you've got it. Just feel your way out. Okay. Now that you're feeling at least somewhat more confident with that, maybe you nailed it, who knows, now we're going to start to apply that to each chord. I'm going to do it very slowly at first. I'm going to count extra slow. You can use the YouTube app to speed it up. If you think it's easy slow, you can slowly speed it up a bit at a time, or you can start it real slow and then, oh, I got it, and slowly speed it up a bit at a time. So I'll stick with my fingers for this. So we're going to go through the whole chord progression one time, and I'm going to count very slowly, and you're going to try to play along with 1 and 2 and 1 and 2, and here we go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 1. So if you need to, you can take it out of time. You can just say the numbers without having to count along. You can slow that video down. You can speed it up. But whatever you need to do to kind of really get more comfortable with that pattern, now's the time to do it. So when you're ready to go on, we're going to slowly speed things up a bit at a time. There's a couple of parts of the song, like if you want to, there's a couple of twisty variations where the chords change a little bit, and sort of like there's definitely one other chord that he uses. Like whenever he does, scooch on over closer, dear, and I will nibble your ear. There he does a D7 chord. So let me kind of show you how that goes. So you go from an F chord. You can leave the middle finger there and use the ring finger to move this string up from being on the 1st fret to the 2nd fret. So what you get is 2nd fret, open string, 2nd fret, open string. And it sounds like this. And that is your D7 chord. So what he does is he does the chorus normally. This is our fate. I'm yours. Do-do-do. So as soon as he says the little do-do, he's kind of started on something different, where he's going to do one pattern for every chord. If we're doing the Hawaiian pattern, we're going to go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and G and 2 and 3 and 4 and A minor. Now he switches here, goes through a G again, goes back to a G, and then he goes to an F. So the chord progression for this part, it goes C, G, A minor, G again, and then F. And this F he's going to do for 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then he's going to go to the D7. 1, 2, 3, 4, and on the 5, just whacks it. Just like boom, whoosh. So let's try that whole part together, kind of slow. I'll call out the chords and count it as we go. It's going to start on C. Be like F. I'm yours. Here we go. Do 1, 2, and 3. G, 5, 6, A minor. 1, 2, G, and then to F. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, D7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've been spending way too long checking. And then he's right back into a verse. So that's the second place that the D7 occurs, at least on the record. And then there's another time when he's kind of gone through his ad-libs. He's like, the sky is yours, so please don't, please don't, please don't. There's no need to complicate, 'cause our time is short. This is our fate. I'm yours. So he'll kind of use it as a pause at an end of a chorus a lot, and that's something you can kind of do if you're singing this with a bunch of people. You can kind of, whenever people kind of have that feeling they're going to go to that part, you just kind of look at everybody and you're like, la la, and it's always going to be right after the F chord, always after the F chord. So that's a little tool you can use. And yeah, another thing I want to talk about is just the possibility of using a couple of different patterns. So there's another thing you can do entirely. Right now we've talked about using the Hawaiian pattern. We go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we've talked about using kind of the groovy pattern where you're like down, down, up, down, down, up. And you can definitely do that. And you can take the Hawaiian pattern and you can swing it. You can go triplet, 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 triplet. If you haven't learned about swing yet, I would look at my lesson on it. It's part of the 20-hour ukulele challenge, but this is kind of a bonus song that uses it, where it's like you basically do the Hawaiian pattern with a swing. So what you have to do to kind of get that down is you have to go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So when you go 1 and you go down on the 1 or on the numbers and up on the for everything. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 6 and 7 and 8 and. So if you want to work on that, that's something you can practice here or in another song, but that's a twist you can add in, is just swing the whole thing. Or if you feel like you can just kind of snap it into like you're down, you kind of whip your up to your down. You kind of go down, up, down, up, down. If you can kind of just change the groove of your arm a bit to be like, where you kind of whip up into the down a little more quickly. That might be an easier way to get it if your ear can just kind of make your hand do it. So that's another way to get into it. Another thing you can do entirely, which I actually prefer to do when I do this song, is I kind of do it reggae style. Or what I do is on those accents on the 2 and the 4, I kind of do the Hawaiian pattern, but most of the time I just mute the chords. I'll be like, that's how I prefer to play this song when I can, or I mix that style in there. So the way that we're getting that is I'm just doing the Hawaiian pattern, down, up, down, up, down, but I'm starting with a mute. I'm lightly touching the strings. I'm not pressing them. I'm just lightly resting my fingers so I can go. So try to make sure you got that good clean mute first. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take our pick, and when we have our down, up, down, up, down, up, down, when we have that together, and we have a very clear punch through that, what we're going to do is we're going to open up the strings. We're going to go, and we're going to open the strings up and then put the fingers back in place. And it takes a little bit of tuning to be able to get your fingers just lightly back in place without going, or see how I'm lightly pushing down and you're hearing notes. We don't want that. We want to hear just dead as a doornail. So one thing you can practice is kind of snapping. This is kind of a style point. If all you do is, if for now you kind of go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6, that's okay for now. Eventually you want this to be tight and snappy, and it can't be too tight. It can't be like, that's too much. It has to be kind of the right amount, but with practice you'll find it. So then what you do is once you've kind of, actually, let's run a practice run of that first here in the video so you can practice along, and then I'll show you how to apply it to the chords. So first of all, 1, 2, 1 and 2, and here we go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 1 more time. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8. So if you need to, slow this down or speed it up so you can practice and kind of get it to the speed you need to get it to. And then next, let's look at how to apply that to the chords that we've done. I've done this in a couple other songs too. I'm just going to repeat it here. So With the C chord, I usually mute it by using these three fingers. Like I take this finger and I loosen it so that, but I don't take it off the string because you don't want that. So you want to leave it on the string, but loosen it, and then sort of lightly let this boop drop down. Boop, boop. So you kind of lightly let these fingers just sort of just drop back into place. So it sort of looks like this from the side. So take a second to practice just going C, mute, C, mute, C, mute, C, mute. Good. Pause the video if you need to, and just make sure you've got a good, clean C mute before we go on. Okay, awesome. Let's keep going. So, with the G chord, G chord's a little bit trickier depending on how you finger it. Because usually you've got these three you can just let go, but this string is the trick because it's open. So you might just let these fingers go, but this is still going to ring. So a lot of times I'll either use my pinky. I'll kind of keep my pinky sort of here, and then I'll sort of lightly bring it down. Also, you can also sort of like, you can sort of break your wrist like this and let the thumb come around and lightly touch this string. It's another way to do it. And I'll show you one more way, and then I want you to kind of experiment and pick one that works for you, and then stick with it. Another thing you can do is you can kind of take one of these fingers here and sort of take it a little bit out of position. So like I'm going to take the middle finger and just whoop, when I break my wrist like this, I sort of let my middle finger come off of its fret and lightly touch, just as little as I can, just touch the edge of this, because it's going to have to go right back. It's going to have to go very quick. And that can work, and I can still get it back into place. See, it's a little, that's tricky to do. It's if you have to see, if I want to go right back to an upstroke, it's really tough to do. So I think for me personally, the pinky on this one is quicker. But if I practice this method where I went, I could probably hit it in both directions. So those are your three options. You can either use the pinky, or you can use the thumb to come around, or you can like break a finger out. Those are all options. So pick one of those things and then practice your G mute. So see what you can do with that. I'll wait until you're ready, and then we're going to go on to A minor and F, which you mute the same way. Okay, sweet. Here we go. A minor and F. So A minor and F are kind of the same type of shape. So we're gonna mute them in a similar technique. So with A minor, got this sort of here. Where again, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna break my wrist. It's nothing crazy with my arm or my shoulder. All I do is take my wrist and go pop. I do like a little gooseneck, not a huge crazy one, but just like a little one. Because what you're gonna see that does is that causes my arch under my fingers to drop. And again, if you have a hard time getting all your notes clean on your ukulele chords, you can do the opposite of just like, whoop. You see how that brings my fingers up and around? You don't want to do a ton of it, but a little bit of it should help bring your fingers around in a really good way. Normally I try to keep a nice line here, and then I let these joints curve around to get me on the tips of my fingers. But if you need to, sometimes you can arch a little bit this way to get a little more space under here. In this case, we're doing the opposite. We're going, boop. If we let this note go, stop pushing, and then we bring the fingers down that way, then super easy to mute that way. And you can do that real fast. And another thing I do, particularly to make me not even have to go less far, is I'll use that sort of like the pinky method, except I'm using the ring and the pinky. See, when I break my wrist, these fingers can be even closer in place, because this middle finger arches really high, whereas these ones can pretty much just be laying down the whole time. So that's another way you can do it, and F is the same. So you can pick one of those methods to mute your A minor and your F, and then I want you to practice the same thing. It's just try and A minor, clean, switch to F. Try to switch between A minor and F and get good clean mutes. Doesn't matter the pace you do it at, but I'm going to pause and make sure you get comfortable with the mechanics before we keep going. Awesome, 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 awesome. Okay, last of all, I'm going to throw in just like how you do this all. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a chorus, and I'm going to play a verse and a chorus of this song using like as many of these different patterns as I can, just to give you an idea of how you can even mix them up to make a performance more interesting. So let's see what we can do with this at the end here. And if you want to play along to practice some of these things, go ahead and do that. So right, here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Well, you done me and you bet I felt it. I tried to be chill, but you're so hot that I melted. I fell right through the cracks. Now I'm trying to get back. Before the cool done run out, I'll be giving it my bestest, and nothing's going to stop me but divine intervention. I reckon it's again my turn to win some or learn some, but I won't hesitate no more, no more. It cannot wait. I'm yours. Ba-ba-doo-day. There you go. There's some of the different ideas put together into part of I'm Yours. That's a fun song to really play with and just see like which verses different people know and harmonize different things. I really love playing with the song and like mashing it up with other songs. So if you're interested in those things, check out the other lessons in the 20-hour ukulele challenge. You can learn some more songs and some different ways to take songs like this and kind of improvise with them with your friends. It's really fun stuff. So yeah, hope you dig it. Hope to see you in another lesson soon. Bye-bye.